Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hounds, and for this video I'm going to go through all the Blu-rays and DVDs that I picked up in the month of November. So I've got quite a few this month. This is probably going to be a pretty long video, so sorry about that, but hopefully you can stick with me because I got some pretty cool stuff this month. Managed to get quite a few things that I've wanted to see for years, which is pretty awesome. And then as well as that, we've got some new stuff. Got some cool 80s stuff, got some extreme stuff, a few video nasties as well, so pretty good mix this time around. So I'll get straight into it. So the first film I picked up was A Quiet Place Part 2. So the first one of these, I wasn't all that keen on it. There are a few things about the film that didn't quite work for me, thought they made some silly decisions, and just didn't go for it all that much. This one, I enjoyed it a bit more. It still had some issues for me. I just think I don't really go for the tone of these movies. They don't really do it for me. They're not bad movies. I think they're really well made. It's kind of non-stop suspense in this film. There's always something going on. Emily Blunt and Cillian Murphy were fantastic in it. So, yeah, not bad movies at all. I just don't go for these all that much. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking, if I'm going to watch a film about creatures that hunt by sound, I'll watch Tremors because they're just such more fun movies than what these are. These just don't really do it for me personally. But like I say, not bad films. Definitely I had some good things about them. I just don't go for these all that much. But it was okay. So that's A Quiet Place Part 2. Next up from Screen Factory, picked up Alone in the Dark. So this is one of these movies that I've wanted to see for years. I remember when I was young, I saw a documentary about the making of Halloween, and they referenced Alone in the Dark as another slasher that came out a lot around that time. And so ever since then, I've wanted to see this film. So when Screen Factory put it out, I was really happy to finally get it. So this is a slasher film about these three mental patients that escape from this asylum and go around killing people. Wasn't the best slasher I've ever seen, but definitely not the worst. I liked it. I liked how they went for the doctor and his family rather than a bunch of teenagers. That was a little bit different. And it stars Jack Palance, Martin Landau and Donald Pleasence, which is just a fantastic cast right there. And I've got to say, Martin Landau was amazing as this escaped mental patient. He was frighteningly believable with his sort of gaunt smile and his crazy eyes. Jack Palance, fantastic actor, but I didn't quite believe him as an escaped mental patient, whereas Martin Landau nailed that role. So great to finally see Alone in the Dark. I did like that one. Okay, next up I picked up the Annabelle sequels. So Annabelle Creation and Annabelle Comes Home. So got these two. I've never seen these two sequels until this month, and this now kind of completes my Conjuring universe collection. I thought they're okay. I didn't quite go for Annabelle Creation. I didn't think the story was that great, and yeah, I found that one a little bit dull, to be honest. But Annabelle Comes Home was a bit better. So overall, kind of just average sequels, but I'm glad to finally get these and check them out, and like I say, complete my Conjuring universe collection. Okay, next up, picked up Aquaslash, which is like a slasher film that takes place at a water theme park. This one looks fun. I've not had a chance to watch it yet, although I've not read great things about it. So, although it looks pretty good, we'll have to see. So, I've never seen a slasher at a water park anyway, so that'll be cool. Okay, next up we have The Bad Seed from the 50s. Didn't think this was great, to be honest. This is very dialogue heavy. There are scenes in this where the characters are just talking for like 30-40 minutes straight. So a lot of talking in this one. It's about this sort of like little girl. She's all angelic and really nice and well-mannered. But she's got a dark side, and she kills people that kind of who cross her path. But yeah, it's a little bit hard going. It's over 2 hours long, which is rare for a 50s film. You never see any kind of violence or killing either. It's all kind of rhetoric through the dialogue throughout the film, but there's just so much talking. And from what I understand, this was based on like a Broadway play. So it's like they've kind of brought it to the screen, but they've not done anything to make it more theatrical. Characters sort of literally walk on stage left, talk for 20, 30, 40 minutes, and then walk off stage right. So it's pretty hard going, a bit too talkative for me. The performances in it were great, particularly the young girl who, like I say, is really nice and sweet, but actually has a dark side. The performances were fantastic, but yeah, just a bit too dialogue heavy for me. So that's that one. And then I did pick up The Bad Seed again. This is a 1970s TV remake. Not had a chance to watch this one yet. I've heard this one is a bit better than the 50s one, so we'll see. Hopefully it will be a bit more theatrical, even though it's a TV movie. They'll make it a bit more theatrical than kind of the stage play set 50s movie. Okay, next up, I have some extreme stuff now. One for the Shockumentaries collection. So this is Banned in America. So this is pretty hardcore shock footage showing some real unpleasant stuff. You may want to skip ahead a couple of minutes if you don't want to hear about this one. But this is very kind of graphic scenes, things caught on camera, shootings, stabbings, executions, torture, mutilation, car accidents, things like that. Really, really unpleasant stuff. Very hardcore stuff. I barely got through it, to be honest with you. It's very hard going, very stomach churning. I wouldn't recommend this, and I don't want to glorify the things that go on in it. This was a little bit too graphic for my liking. I mainly picked this up because these are insanely hard to find, and if you find them, they go for a lot of money. So I just happened to find a UK seller. They're selling it cheap, so I didn't want to pass it up. But yeah, this is hardcore stuff, which is pretty hard to watch. Having said that, I do have a bit of a side quest on now because there's a series of these films, and I'm trying to get them all just because I think it would look pretty badass for the collection to have them all lined up on the shelf. But yeah, not that I'd recommend people watch this one. And then, actually by stroke of luck, I did find the second one. I can't show that cover, but I did find the second one, the second Banned in America. So I went from not being able to find these at all to finding 1 and 2 in the space of a week, which is pretty good going in the world of extreme horror collecting. So that's them. Okay, next up we have Bigfoot County. This was okay. It's not a Bigfoot film. I was kind of looking forward to seeing like one of these kind of rural Bigfoot creature feature films set in the woods. I quite like the aesthetics of those kind of movies. This isn't one of them. This is found footage. It's more like Blair Witch. These filmmakers get lost in the woods and they hear spooky, mysterious things, and it's more about what you don't see than anything else. And then it turns into a bit of a hillbilly horror film towards the end. I've got to say, I hated the ending and where the film went. I didn't like that at all. So, a bit like Blair Witch, but Blair Witch did it better. I didn't like the ending, and there was no Bigfoot. So, a little bit disappointing, but it happens. So, that's that one. Okay, next up from Troma, I picked up Bloodsucking Freaks. So, I watched this years and years ago and thought it was awful, and I've never seen it since. And I've kind of wanted to watch it again just to see what I think second time round now that it's been a few years. So I'll give it another watch. I haven't watched it yet. I've not been that inclined to watch it, but I'll check it out at some point and see how it holds up on a second viewing. But gosh, I thought that was awful the first time I watched it. Next up from Scream Factory, we have The Body Snatcher. Pretty cool film from the 40s where Boris Karloff plays like a grave robber, and he's working with this doctor who wants bodies for kind of scientific research, but it all gets a bit complicated. The relationship between them frays a little bit and it gets a bit dark, But this was a really good film. I love Boris Karloff's performance in this one as this kind of sinister grave robbing guy who sort of blackmails and threatens the doctor and his assistant a little bit. But yeah, really good film. If you like your 40s black and white movies, I can definitely recommend Body Snatcher. This was a pretty cool one. Okay, next up from Scream Factory again, we have The Borrower. Saw a lot of people picking this one up. I've actually never heard of this one before, but thought I'd check it out. This is about this alien that comes down to Earth and has to try and blend in, but he has to kind of reinvigorate himself by ripping people's heads off and using their heads as his own. So pretty cool concept there. It wasn't great, if I'm honest. I can see why I've never heard of this one. There just wasn't really a lot to it, I didn't think. It does boast some pretty good practical effects, and I like the fact that he has to like rip people's heads off and stuff. That was pretty cool. But other than that, not a lot in this one, unfortunately. But I'm glad to have finally seen it. Okay, next up, I picked up Cradle of Fear, which I did watch when this first came out years ago in about 2000. Didn't think much to it at the time, but couldn't remember it, and I've wanted to see it for quite a while again, so finally picked this up. I remember this kind of being famous a little bit for having Danny Filth in it from Cradle of Filth. I don't listen to them myself, but yeah, he's in this. Doesn't bring a lot to the film, if I'm honest, I have to say, but this is like a British anthology. So on second viewing, I did like it a bit more. At times it's fantastic, but when it's bad, it's really bad. So there's some really good gore in it and things like that. I did like most of the stories in this. It has a pretty good kind of like gritty British look to it, which I didn't like the first time round, but I did really like that this time round. So definitely worth checking out just for the gore alone, because it's very gory. It just kind of drops in quality in places and struggles a bit, but yeah, not bad on the whole, and nice to kind of watch this again. It's sort of quite nostalgic, being from like 2000 or 2001. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And then next up from Network, I picked up one of their recent releases. This is The Dark Eyes of London from the 30s, Bela Lugosi. I have watched this a long time ago, but I don't remember too much about it. I remember it being good, and I liked it, so I'll check this out again at some point and see what it's like. But yeah, I remember regarding this as a really good kind of vintage 30s black and white horror film, and Bela Lugosi was pretty good in this one. And this comes with a really nice slipcase from Network. It's got a strange feel to it. It feels a bit kind of rubbery, but very nice kind of high quality slipcase there from them, which is pretty cool. Okay, next up from Scream Factory, picked up Deadly Friend. Never seen this one before, wanted to see it for a while. Pretty good stuff. This teenager, he builds robots and things like that, and he's got this robot companion, and he moves to this new house. He makes friends with the girl next door, but she gets killed, and he uses his skills for making robots and that to bring her back to life. So a bit of like a Frankenstein kind of story, but in like an 80s teen movie. I thought this was really good. I enjoyed Deadly Friend. Good to finally check this one out. And it does feature the best death by basketball scene that I've ever seen. If you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm referring to. So that was really cool. So yeah, nice release there from Scream Factory. Okay, next up from Wild Eye, we have Death Rink. And I really like this one as well. So this had some really good things about it. I love the setting. It's set in like a rollerblading place where you go and rollerblade. That was cool. I like the characters in it. They were really kind of quite likeable, and I believe that they were all sort of friends and colleagues that worked at this rollerblading place. The only downside to this was it took a long time for anything to get going. I think it was about sort of 45 minutes plus before the first kill took place, so it really did start to drag. Fortunately, like I say, the characters were likeable and quite funny. I think if they weren't, this would have been really tough to get through, but they kind of carried the film until something finally happened. But it's just unfortunate there's not more happened in this, because this was nearly a winner, nearly a Wild Eye winner. They did a pretty good job with this one. I enjoyed it. So yeah, not bad stuff there. I just wish they'd kind of pushed the plot on a little bit more. Okay, next up, I picked up The Dentist, which I've just never had in the collection before. I did watch this back in the 90s. Thought it was pretty cool, so finally got it, watched it again. It's not too bad, it's pretty silly, although I do challenge anyone not to wince a little bit at the dentist scenes when he's drilling at people's teeth and gums and things like that. That was pretty effective stuff, and Corbin Bernsen was fantastic as in the role as the crazy dentist. So glad to finally get this one for the collection after seeing it so many years ago. Okay, next up is Don't Breathe 2, which I thought was good. I thought this was a pretty cool film, pretty action-packed, pretty high-octane stuff in this. Stephen Lang was great as the blind man, and taking it to these like criminals and gangsters. I was just a little bit confused with this one, because I remember him in number 1 being quite a sinister bad guy character. And he wasn't really in this one, so I don't know if I'm remembering it wrong or what, but this was pretty good. I still prefer the first one, but yeah, this was a good sequel nonetheless. Okay, next up is Escape Room. Finally got around to getting this one. This was okay. It was alright. It's these characters in these various different escape rooms, but they're actually like real, and if you can't work out the clues, you get killed off, and they have to make their way through it. So I wasn't too keen on the characters. I didn't think there were all that many likeable people in this one, and I liked watching them trying to figure out the clues and seeing how it was linked to their characters and their backstories. That was pretty good, but I kind of felt that the Saw films have already done it, and done it more gorier than this, and I'm not too keen on Saw. But that I thought they did it better and gorier, so didn't quite go for this kind of watered down version. Really, it was okay. It wasn't too bad, just nothing special. Okay, next up, I need to thank Alan Scouser for this one, fellow YouTuber. So he sent me Eye of the Devil from the 60s, which I really enjoyed watching. This is a really good kind of like supernatural British film, filmed in France. So David Niven is involved in like this weird religious cult, and his wife, played by Deborah Kerr, she's sort of uncovers it and tries to sort it all out and things like that. But it's very kind of weird, very kind of like Wicker Man kind of feel to it. Dragged a little bit in places. I think they could have sort of got there quicker to what happens in the climax of this film, but worth watching alone for the amazing performances in this film. So like you say, you've got Deborah Kerr, David Niven, Donald Pleasance is in this, Catherine Tate, David Hemmings, some really wonderful people, and David Niven in particular as this like astute gentleman but with a dark brooding secret is just fantastic. This may actually be the only film I've got in the collection with David Niven. He didn't do that many horror films, but he's wonderful in this, as is everyone else. So yeah, pretty good 60s British film there, Eye of the Devil, and thank you again, Alan Scouser, for sending me that. Okay, next up from Synapse, I picked up Flavia the Heretic. I can't remember what it's called now. Yeah, Flavia the Heretic. So a bit of nunsploitation. I'm not a huge fan of these movies, and I wasn't a huge fan of this one, to be honest. It struggled to hold my attention. It's got a bit of like a historical feel to it, which wasn't really that bad. But I just didn't go for this. I don't go for these kind of movies all that much anyway, so not a lot in this one for me to enjoy. But great to finally get that one. Next up we got Frankenstein's Daughter, which is a pretty fun black and white 50s movie of this guy messing around and creating this woman. So basically the Frankenstein story, but he creates a woman, and it's sort of Beach Boy style 50s kind of USA. So I did like it. It gets a bit towards the end. This sort of band comes into it and they start singing and dancing. It's a bit cringe for me, but I really like the Frankenstein aspect and the story in this one on the whole is a pretty fun 50s one. So that one was cool. Next up from Shudder, picked up one of their new ones, Fried Barry. This is a bit of a crazy one. This is this guy, he gets abducted by aliens. This alien sort of goes into his body, so he's now the alien. And he kind of goes on this drug-filled, partying, violent bender. And yeah, it's pretty crazy, pretty wild. I gotta say, I hated it. I didn't like this one at all. I've seen a lot of good reviews on this one, but I just didn't like it. Didn't like it one bit. It was just too weird, too irreverent, too crazy. I didn't like the performances. It was too in your face. Didn't like it at all, unfortunately. And I usually like what Shudder put out, but not that one. Okay. Next up from Troma, we got Frostbiter, which is another one I've wanted to see for years. I've heard good things about this one, and I did really like this. This was a fun B-movie monster film, a bit like Evil Dead, in this cabin, in this snowy wilderness, and these kind of rubber monsters are attacking these people. Pretty good stuff, pretty fun. It's not got the gory ferocity of Evil Dead. It's much more kind of held back and more kind of silly than that, but I did have a good time watching this. Pretty underrated in terms of B-movie creature features. Not one that you hear about very much, but I can imagine Vinegar Syndrome putting this one out. I know they put a lot of Troma stuff out, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get this from Vinegar Syndrome at some point. Yeah, I'm surprised people have sat on this one for that long, because it would be a pretty fun release. So that's Frostbiter. Okay, next up, kind of extreme horror, one of the video nasties that's still banned in the UK here. We have the Gestapo's Last Orgy. So, this one was pretty good. So, it's still, even by today's standards, this is still pretty violent. It's got some scenes of violence and rape and torture in it that are pretty strong. Quite bad taste, I have to say. It sort of centres around these Nazis. It's like a women in prison concentration camp movie, but a lot of kind of Nazi symbolism, sort of swastikas everywhere, and some pretty kind of unpleasant dialogue, sort of talk of Aryan supremacy and prejudice against certain races and things like that. Got to be honest, I didn't hate the film. I thought it was pretty well made for this kind of movie, and there were some aspects of it that were, dare I say, quite stylish. It's just like I say, it sensationalizes and glorifies events that even to this day are still quite difficult for certain people and places. So I imagine even back in the day, this one would have been pretty problematic with its its Nazi references and things like that. And one of the few that I can see why it was banned, and I can see why it was seized here in the UK. But like I say, I did like it. I thought it delivered pretty well, and yeah, it was pretty well made. Probably not worth going after unless you are either a fan of women in prison movies or a fan of video nasties, because this is one of the more nastier ones. But yeah, like I say, I thought it was pretty good. And really nice release from H8 Films. You get a nice slipcase, there's a booklet in this, poster, so great to finally have that one in the collection. Okay, next up I got Good Against Evil, which is just a little TV movie, bit of like an Exorcist rip-off of this woman. I think she's, I can't even remember now, I watched this at the beginning of the month. This guy's married to this woman, but she's got like, she's related to Satan or something like that, and it kind of switches it up and it becomes a bit of an Exorcist rip-off with this woman's daughter that's possessed. It's not great, but it was okay. Good to finally see it, because I've known about that one for a while. Next up from Full Moon, we have House of Cruel Dolls, which is It was alright. It's like a mix of kind of like women in prison and then like this kind of James Bond subplot with this suave guy trying to sort out this sort of these human traffickers kind of thing. It was alright. Okay, next up from Olive Films, we have Killer Workout, which was so bad it was good. Really, really cheesy stuff. Takes place in this gym, this like aerobics gym, where there's a killer going around killing people. I lost count of the amount of scenes of women in their leotards doing aerobics and exercise and that kind of thing. But this is as if someone has tried to cram as much cheesy and cringy 80s content into like an hour and 20 minutes and just packed it all in there. Everything, every silly trope from the 80s is in this movie and done to the max. So not great, but I couldn't help but be entertained and it made me laugh in parts and things like that. The only thing with this is the picture quality was terrible. To say it's Blu-ray, it looks like VHS, which didn't bother me personally. I don't mind that, but if you're someone that goes for optimum picture quality, you won't like this release. But yeah, not bad. Next up from Blue Underground, I picked up their new 4K release of Maniac Cop and Maniac Cop 3. So I've never seen the sequels. I've seen the first Maniac Cop and I like that one, and I did like these sequels as well. I thought they were pretty good, pretty kind of sort of, I like the story, I like the effects. There's a couple of great scenes of the Maniac Cop on fire. They're done really well. So pretty undemanding stuff, but I enjoyed them. Thought they were cool, good sequels. Good to finally get these in the collection. And really nice releases from Blue Underground. I thought these 4K releases were very nice. So that's the Maniac Cop sequels. Next up from Scream Factory, I got Mask of the Red Death. So some Vincent Price, Roger Corman classic goodness here. Not bad. Not my favourite one of these kind of movies, but still pretty good. I don't think there's any Vincent Price film where I don't like his performance in it. And this has got like a really nice kind of gothic feel and those kind of vibrant colours that these movies had. So yeah, pretty classic stuff. Okay, next up, another Video Nasty, one that I've wanted to see for years. I've got Night of the Bloody Apes. So this is from the 60s, quite early for a Video Nasty. And this was really good. This was better than what I expected. It's like this guy, he's like a surgeon, and his son is dying from like a virus or something. He can't save him. So he has the idea to transfer the heart of a gorilla into his son to try and save his life. And it works, but it turns his son into like this, gorilla, half man, half gorilla monster that goes around killing women and ripping off their clothes and things like that. So this, I believe this was on the Video Nasty list because it features some pretty graphic and gruesome open heart surgery. It's pretty strong stuff. There's footage of these surgeons cutting into this body and cutting through the chest cavity and tinkering with the heart and putting the heart in the camera's face and things like that. I think that's what got it on the list. But it does quite deliver in the violence and nudity areas as well. For a 60s film, it's pretty strong stuff, and I had a lot of fun watching this. I thought it was a good one. So great to finally check out Night of the Bloody Apes. I don't know why it's pluralised because it's just the one guy as this ape monster running around, but yeah. Next up from Criterion, I got one of their recent releases, Onibaba. So I really like these kind of 60s Japanese horror fables that Criterion tend to release. They've done a few of them, and this is, I think, one of the more famous films from that category, although I've never seen it myself. So I'm looking forward to checking this one out and seeing what it's like. These are usually kind of really interesting films, quite arty, quite ethereal in their look and feel. So I do enjoy watching these ones, so I'll check that one out soon. Next up from Arrow, I got their new beefy release of Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge. Never seen this before. This was a first time watch, and I had a lot of fun watching this. This was a great 80s horror film of this guy who he dies. I think he dies in a fire in like kind of mysterious circumstances, and then they build this new state-of-the-art mall over the scene where he died, but he's actually still alive as like this half-burnt kind of creature that's living in like the subterranean areas of the mall, and he goes around killing people. Yeah, I really like this. I thought it was a lot of fun. I love the mall setting. I think a mall in the 80s is always pretty awesome. Had some pretty cool kills in it. I like the characters. Really nice release from Arrow. There's a few unboxings of this on YouTube if you want to check it out. But yeah, really good stuff. Good to finally check that one out and add it to the collection. Next up from Scream Factory, I got Rasputin the Mad Monk. So Hammer horror film with Christopher Lee playing the historical Russian figure. And I really like this. I actually did my top 10 Hammer films a couple of weeks back, and this was in the list because I enjoyed it so much. It's one that I kind of put off watching for a while because I didn't quite fancy the idea of like a Russian, I don't know, a Russian historical film like this, but it was really good and one of the best performances I've ever seen from Christopher Lee. He was so commanding and believable in this role, and quite funny as well. There's some quite humorous aspects to his portrayal of Rasputin, which I really like. So yeah, awesome film. I can definitely recommend this as a great Hammer horror movie. That's that one. Next up, I picked up Rocktober Blood, which is one I've wanted to see for a while. I like my heavy metal horror films, and this is about like this rock star who he's a little bit of a bad apple, and he ends up getting killed, but he comes back from the dead and continues to kill people off. It was okay. I like sort of the heavy metal music in this. I just thought it was a weak story. It didn't really have much substance to it, and it's not great quality either. So it was really bad picture quality. I think it's like a VHS rip. But yeah, it was okay. I still think Black Roses is the heavy metal horror film to beat, personally. Next up, again, I need to thank Alan Scouser for this. Thank you, Alan. He sent me Session 9 on Blu-ray, and great to get this from him. I have actually watched Session 9 a few years ago, and it was one that I heard really good things about, but when I watched it, I wasn't too keen on it. I thought it was a little bit slow, so since then I've wanted to watch it again, and to see if I like it anymore, sort of knowing what kind of film it is. So when Alan offered me this on Blu-ray, I was like, yes, I'd love to have that, thank you. So I'm looking forward to watching this again and seeing if I enjoy it a bit more than last time. So I know a lot of people do like this, and it gets a lot of good reviews. So great to finally get that one. Okay, next up from Shudder, got Stay Out of the Attic. This was a pretty cool one. This is like these ex-cons trying to go straight, and they've got like a removal business, and they are moving house of this guy in this big massive mansion, and he's a bit weird, it's a bit creepy, and it transpires that he's like an ex-Nazi soldier, and he's creating these creatures, sort of carrying on what he was doing in the concentration camps, and they fall victim to this, and he starts experimenting on some of them, and some get killed off, and they have to like fight back. I thought it was pretty good. Not spectacular, but a good movie. Pretty fun, pretty entertaining. Got some good practical effects in it. So yeah, not too bad. Next up, I got Tales from the Dark Side. This is the complete collection. I used to watch a few of these on the Horror Channel and thought they were pretty enjoyable, so I wanted to try and get this. I started watching a few of them, so I'm enjoying going through this. The picture quality on this DVD is pretty good. I remember when they were on TV, they looked garbage. I could hardly see what was going on, so it's nice that the picture quality on these is better than the TV. But yeah, it looks like there's some good stuff on this. So yeah, I'm enjoying going through Tales from the Dark Side. Next up, I've got Tales of Halloween. I was a bit late with this one. I should have got it in last month. But again, another one I've wanted to see for quite a while. This is an anthology film. I thought it was okay. There was some... The best ones in this I thought were good, if that makes sense. There were some that were a bit subpar, some that I couldn't get into, and some that were good, quite enjoyable. It's got some good gore and some good practical effects in it. And yeah, it was okay. I just thought it was okay, but good to get it for the collection. And I'll probably watch it again next Halloween. Okay, next up from Scream Factory, I've got Terror in the Aisles, which is another one I've wanted to see for a while. I remember when this was released, a lot of people had like really sort of good nostalgic memories of seeing this back in the day, back in the 80s. And I'd never heard of it. I don't know if we ever got this in the UK back then. But it was really good, a really enjoyable kind of horror compilation hosted by Donald Pleasence and Nancy Allen, and they just show some of the scariest scenes from horror movies, and they kind of talk about them and sort of get a little bit philosophical about horror and why we like them and things like that. So yeah, really good kind of horror compilation. There's even a couple of scenes of films that I've not seen before, so that was good. And really nice interview with Nancy Allen on this as well. She was a great actress, so nice to hear her thoughts on Terror in the Aisles. So yeah, great to finally check that one out. Next up, I got Trick. I have watched this one before. I watched this with my dad at his house. Thought it was okay. This has a pretty strong start and a pretty good twist ending, but I thought it lost a bit of steam in the middle. And struggled to hold my interest a bit there, but not too bad. It was okay. Next up from Code Red, I got Trick or Treats. This was another. I wanted to get this in for Halloween, but on a couple of websites where I was eyeing it up, it went out of stock. So I was a bit worried as to whether I'd actually manage to get this one. But then it did come back in stock, but I didn't manage to get it in time for October. Not that it mattered that much, because I really didn't like this film, unfortunately. It's a guy, he gets taken to a mental asylum and he escapes years later, and he goes back to the house to get revenge on his wife who sends him there, but she's not home, it's the babysitter. But most of the film is the babysitter looking after what has to be the most annoying kid in a horror film ever, and there are some annoying kids in horror films. But this kid, he's like a prankster, and he just keeps doing these stupid pranks where he appears to have like seriously injured himself, and he just keeps doing it over and over and over and over again. And every time he does it, the film presents it as if he's really hurt, and you know he's not by like the second prank in. And it just got really tiring and really irritating. And in fact, it didn't get to the kind of the horror aspect until the last few minutes of the film. So really kind of boring, irritating stuff here. Didn't go for this one at all. And it's also got Steve Railsback and David Carradine. Their names are on the front, but neither of them are hardly in it, which was another disappointment. So yeah, I didn't like that one, unfortunately. Okay, next up is this RL. No, this is Scream Factory. We got The Vigil. Got away from me there. The Vigil. So this had a really good concept. Follows a kind of Jewish custom where if somebody in the Jewish community dies, they have someone watch over their body for the first few hours to kind of guide them into the afterlife or something like that, which is a fantastic premise for a horror film. And this guy, he has to go to this house and sit with this body overnight and see that it's watched over. But creepy things start to happen. So great premise. I didn't think the film was as good as it could have been. I've kind of seen similar things done way more scarier. But it was okay. And like I say, I love that concept. I love the idea of using this Jewish practice to fuel the story along. It was a really interesting premise there. So yeah, not too bad. And then the last one in this update is Weasels Rip My Flesh. Very, very low budget creature feature that I've wanted to see for a long time. This was terrible but wonderful at the same time. So these kind of like mutant weasels attacking this small rural town. The effects are awful. They literally use things that are lying around the house. I'm sure they do. Just household materials and things like that to make these fake weasel creatures that go after people. So really, really low budget amateurish stuff, but I couldn't help but smile and be a little bit entertained by these fake weasel puppets just being thrown at the screen and thrown at the actors and things like that. So that's everything that I got this month, guys. Thank you so much for watching that. Feel free to let me know what you think of these movies. What did you like? What did you not like? Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.